The room went quiet before I even understood why. I was standing near the stage at the annual company gala, clutching a glass of wine I hadn't touched, when Lucas Reed stepped up to the microphone. My team and I worked tirelessly on this project, he said smoothly, the screen behind him lighting up with slides I knew too well. My slid rippled to the crowd when he added, "Of course, not everyone can handle this level of pressure." His eyes flicked to me, just for a second, but it was enough. People turned, some confused, some amused, some already judging. I didn't move, didn't speak, didn't defend myself, because in that moment, I understood something terrifying. This wasn't a mistake. It was planned, carefully, quietly, completely. Applause filled the room as he finished, soaking in admiration that didn't belong to him. And I stood there, invisible in a room full of people who should have known better. That was the moment they destroyed my life in public, and the exact moment I decided I wouldn't fight back loudly. I would do it in silence. My name is James the First. I'm 30 years old. I hope you are enjoying my story. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I didn't cry until I got home. The door barely shut before everything collapsed. My phone buzzed nonstop, messages from coworkers, half curious, half condescending. Rough night. Did Lucas really lead that project? Did something happen between you two? I didn't answer, because explaining it would make it real. Instead, I opened my laptop. The original files were still there. Timestamps, drafts, notes, every late night documented in cold, undeniable detail. Proof. But proof didn't matter if no one cared to see it. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. For years of building credibility in that company. And in one night, he had rewritten the story. My phone rang. "Ethan." I hesitated, then answered. "What happened?" he asked immediately. I told him everything. The silence on the other end said more than words. "That wasn't a mistake," he finally said. "I know." Another pause. "So what are you going to do?" I looked back at my screen, at the folders, the evidence, at everything he thought he got away with. "I'm not going to argue," I said quietly. "Good," Ethan replied, "because you don't fix something like this by talking." The next morning, I went to work. Not because I wanted to, because I needed to see it for myself. Nothing had changed. People greeted me like usual, some overly polite, others avoiding eye contact entirely. Lucas walked in 10 minutes late, confident, relaxed, untouchable. He nodded at people like he had just secured his legacy. When his eyes met mine, he smiled, not apologetic, not nervous, satisfied. That was when it clicked. He didn't just take my work. He expected me to stay quiet about it, because speaking up would make me look desperate, emotional, unprofessional. He had already framed the narrative. I sat at my desk and opened my email. There it was, an official company announcement praising Lucas for his leadership and innovation. My name wasn't mentioned once, not even in the footnotes. I closed the email slowly, then opened a new document. Not a complaint, not a resignation letter. A timeline, every meeting, every file submission, every conversation. If I was going to do this, I needed to be precise, because this wasn't about reacting. It was about dismantling, piece by piece, without making a sound. I didn't act immediately. That was the mistake people make when they're angry. They rush. I waited, observed, listened. Lucas had one weakness. He loved control. Every presentation, every report, every meeting. He needed to be the one steering it. So I gave him exactly that. A week later, he presented an updated version of his project to the executive team. I sat in the back, silent, watching. Halfway through, he hesitated. Just for a second. Then again, a number didn't match. A projection was slightly off. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to make people look twice. He recovered quickly. But I saw it, that flicker of uncertainty, because I knew where it came from. I had quietly updated one of the shared data sets. Not incorrectly, just incompletely. He didn't notice, because he never built it. After the meeting, I overheard two managers talking. Something felt off. One said, "Yeah," the other replied, Not like last time. I walked past them without stopping. But inside, something shifted. It wasn't revenge yet. Not really. But it was a first crack. And once something cracks, it never goes back to being whole. By the second week, the pattern was clear. Lucas was slipping. Not in obvious ways. In small ones. Details he should have known. Questions he couldn't answer cleanly. And every time, I made sure it happened just enough to be noticed, but never enough to be traced. People started asking more questions in meetings. Not aggressive. Just curious. That's all it takes. Doubt doesn't need proof. It just needs repetition. One afternoon, Samantha from HR stopped by my desk. "Hey," she said casually. "Rough few weeks, huh?" I looked up. Something like that. She hesitated. "Lucas has been under a lot of pressure lately," she added. "Interesting. He seems fine," I replied. She studied me for a moment, like she was trying to read something I wasn't showing. Then she smiled and walked away. I watched her go. That interaction told me two things. One, Lucas was feeling it. Two, he was already trying to control the narrative, which meant he was nervous. And nervous people make mistakes. I opened my notebook and added a new line. Pressure is working. Increase gradually. Asterisk, asterisk. This wasn't about destroying him overnight. It was about letting him collapse, while everyone watched him do it to himself. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was subtle, like a tone change in a conversation you didn't realize had turned. Lucas was still in control, technically, but people weren't listening the same way anymore. You could see it in meetings, the way executives leaned back instead of forward, the way questions lingered longer than they used to. He noticed it too. Of course he did. Control was his identity, and it was slipping. One afternoon, he stopped by my desk. First time since the gala. "Got a minute?" he asked. I looked up calmly. "Sure." He leaned against the desk, lowering his voice. "Some of the data inconsistencies lately," he said. "Have you noticed them?" I held his gaze. "I've noticed things." A pause, long enough to make him uncomfortable. "If you've seen something," he continued, "you should bring it up. We're on the same team." I almost smiled. "Are we?" His jaw tightened. "Just slightly. Let's keep this professional," he said. "I am," I replied. He straightened, clearly done with the conversation. "Good," he said, "because I'd hate for misunderstandings to escalate." He walked away. But I didn't miss it. That wasn't confidence. That was a warning. And the fact that he needed to give one meant he was already losing. 2 days later, I got what I needed. An internal email thread, forwarded anonymously to my inbox. No subject line. No message. Just files. I opened them slowly. Conversations between Lucas and Samantha. Dates. Attachments. Decisions. And there it was, clear as day. He hadn't just taken my work. She had helped him validate it, push it through approvals, override internal checks. My name had been removed deliberately. I leaned back in my chair, heart steady, not racing, not emotional, just certain, because this changed everything. This wasn't office politics anymore. This was coordinated, documented, provable. I didn't respond to the sender, didn't acknowledge it, just downloaded everything and stored it offline. Then I created a second copy, and a third, because evidence like this, you don't risk losing. Across the office, Lucas laughed at something someone said. Carefree, untouched. For now, I closed my laptop gently. This wasn't about suspicion anymore. It was about timing. And now, for the first time since that night, I wasn't reacting. I was ready. The next executive review meeting was scheduled for Friday. High stakes. High visibility. Lucas had been preparing all week. I made sure of that. Subtle questions sent through internal channels. Clarifications requested from different departments. Nothing aggressive. Just enough to force him to over-explain, overcommit, overcomplicate. By the time Friday came, he wasn't just presenting. He was defending. I sat in the same seat as before. Back row. Quiet. Invisible. Halfway through it started. A question about projections. Another about timeline inconsistencies. Then one about methodology. Each one small. Each one reasonable. Together, destabilizing. Lucas handled the first few well. But then, he contradicted himself. Just slightly. Enough for the CFO to pause. "Can you clarify that?" she asked. He tried, but the damage was done. Not obvious, not dramatic, but visible. When the meeting ended, no one clapped. No praise, no recognition, just polite nods and silence. As people filed out, I caught a fragment of conversation. "Something's off." That was all I needed. Lucas stopped smiling after that, not publicly, but in the spaces between, the hallway pauses, the tightened jaw, the way he checked his phone more often. He knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what. That uncertainty? It eats at people, especially people like him. Control wasn't just something he liked. It was something he needed. And now, he didn't have it. Later that afternoon, I noticed something interesting. He called Samantha into his office. Closed door. Long conversation. Voices raised just slightly. When she came out, her expression was different. Tense. Worried. Good. That meant the pressure was spreading. Exactly how I wanted it. Because this was never about one person. It was about the system that protected him. And systems don't collapse all at once. They fracture, then fail. That evening, I updated my notes. Phase 2, destabilize support. Because once he stood alone, everything else would fall faster than he expected. Monday morning, I was called into a meeting. Lucas, Samantha, and legal. Interesting. I walked in calm, sat down, waited. Lucas spoke first. "There have been inconsistencies in project data," he said. "We're reviewing internal processes." Carefully worded, non-accusatory, but pointed. "Have you noticed anything unusual?" Samantha added. I looked between them, then answered simply, "Yes." Silence. Lucas leaned forward slightly. "What kind of inconsistencies?" I held his gaze. "The kind that happen when someone presents work they didn't build." The room went still. Samantha shifted in her seat. Lucas's expression hardened. "That's a serious claim," he said. "I agree," I replied. Another pause. Then legal stepped in. "We'll be conducting a full review," they said. I nodded. Good. Because now it was official. And once something becomes official, it stops being personal. It becomes documented, traceable, real. As I stood to leave, Lucas spoke again. "This isn't over," he said quietly. I met his eyes. "I know." But what I didn't say was, "It hasn't even started yet." No, Ann. No emails. Just people being called into rooms. Questions being asked. Files being reviewed. Lucas tried to maintain control, but it was slipping faster now. Because scrutiny changes everything. Details matter more. Stories get tested. And lies? They don't hold under pressure. Samantha avoided me completely, which told me everything I needed to know. Guilt doesn't hide well. Midweek, a rumor started circulating. Something about discrepancies in documentation. Nothing confirmed, but enough to spread. I didn't participate, didn't engage, just listened. Because the best part of this? I didn't have to push anymore. The system was doing it for me. By Thursday, Lucas's calendar was filled with back-to-back meetings. No breaks, no breathing room. Pressure, constant. And then, the first real sign. An email from senior leadership. Mandatory review session. Full attendance required. Friday morning. I read it once, then closed my laptop. Because I already knew what that meant. This wasn't internal anymore. This was escalation. Friday morning felt different. Heavier, like everyone sensed something was coming. The conference room was full. Leadership, legal, HR. Lucas sat at the front, still composed, still trying. The presentation started. But this time, he wasn't leading it. Legal was. Slide by slide, they walked through project. Timelines, file histories, authorship records. I watched his face, carefully. At first, confidence. Then confusion. Then realization. Because the timestamps didn't lie. The edits didn't lie. The ownership trail? Impossible to fake completely. Can you explain this discrepancy? Legal asked. Lucas opened his mouth, paused, closed it. Samantha looked down, didn't speak, didn't defend him. And that was the moment everything shifted. Because silence in a room like that, it's louder than any accusation. The meeting ended without a conclusion, but it didn't need one. The damage was done. Lucas left the room quickly. No eye contact, no confidence, just urgency. Samantha stayed behind, arguing quietly with legal. Desperate, I walked out without saying a word, because this part wasn't mine anymore. By afternoon, access permissions started changing. Files restricted, systems locked. Standard procedure, but symbolic. Control was being taken away. Lucas tried to call a team meeting. Half the people declined. The other half stayed silent. That's how fast things change. 1 week you're in charge. Next week, no one's listening. That evening I got an email. Short, direct. We may need your formal statement. I stared at it for a moment, then closed my laptop. Because the truth was, I didn't feel angry anymore. Not really. Just finished. He showed up at my apartment that night. Unannounced. Desperate. You did this, he said the second I opened the door. Not a question. A statement. I leaned against the frame. Did I? Don't play games, he snapped. You've been setting this up. I studied him. Really looked at him. And for the first time, he didn't look powerful. He looked scared. I didn't make you take my work, I said calmly. I didn't make you lie. His breathing was uneven. This isn't over, he said again. It is for me, I replied. That stopped him, because he expected a fight, an argument, emotion, but I had none left to give. Why? He asked finally. Why go this far? I held his gaze. Because you already did. Silence. Heavy. Final. Then I closed the door. And this time, he didn't knock again. By Monday, it was official. Lucas was suspended. Samantha, too. Internal investigation pending. No details shared. But no one needed them. The office atmosphere shifted instantly. Conversations quieter. More careful. Like everyone was recalibrating. I kept my routine the same. Came in. Did my work. Left. No commentary. No involvement. Because the loudest statement I could make now was consistency. People started treating me differently, more respectful, more aware, not because I demanded it, because they understood. Truth has a way of reordering things, even when it's inconvenient. That afternoon, my manager stopped by. We're reviewing leadership assignments, he said. Careful tone, measured. You'll be included in that discussion. I nodded, understood. He hesitated. Anything you want to add? I thought for a moment, then shook my head. No, because everything that needed to be said already had been. Nothing dramatic. Lucas was terminated. Weeks passed. Slowly, deliberately, the investigation concluded without public drama. No announcements, just outcomes. Samantha resigned. Official statements use words like policy violations and internal inconsistencies. Nothing emotional, but final. I wasn't called into any final meetings. Didn't need to be. My part had already been played. One morning, I walked into work and found my access updated. New project lead. Same project. My project. No announcement. No ceremony. Just restored. I sat at my desk for a long moment, looking at the files, the structure, everything exactly how I had built it. And for the first time since that night, I felt something settle. Not victory, not satisfaction, just balance, like something that had been knocked out of place, was finally back where it belonged. People expected me to say something, to explain, to confirm. I didn't, because silence, when used correctly, is power. Ethan called that evening. He's gone, he said. I know. Pause. You okay? I thought about it. Really thought. Yeah, I said finally. I think I am. And I meant it, because this was never about destroying him. It was about correcting something that should have never happened. And now, It was done. Work became normal again. Steady, predictable. Mine. I focused on the project, refined it, improved it, not to prove anything, just because that's what I do. Recognition came gradually, quietly, the kind that actually matters. One afternoon, a senior executive stopped by my desk. "Good work," she said simply. No exaggeration, no performance, just acknowledgement. I nodded, "Thank you." And that was enough, because real recognition doesn't need an audience. 3 weeks later, I got a message. Unknown number. Short, "I'm sorry." No name. But I knew. I stared at it for a moment, then locked my phone. No response. Because apologies, after everything, don't rebuild anything. They just acknowledge what's already broken. And I wasn't interested in revisiting it. I saw him once more, by accident, across the street. Different clothes, different posture, smaller. He saw me too. Hesitated, like he might come over, then didn't. We just stood there for a second. Two people who used to exist in the same story, now completely separate. I gave a small nod, not forgiveness, not acknowledgement, just neutrality. Then I walked away. And this time, I didn't think about it again. No tension, no uncertainty. Life didn't transform overnight. It rarely does, but it stabilized, which mattered more. Work was steady. My routine was mine again. Just clarity. And that clarity, that was everything. One night, sitting alone, it finally hit me. I hadn't just lost something. I had avoided something worse. Because if he had succeeded quietly, I would have stayed in that environment, trusted the wrong system, built on something unstable. And that realization changed everything. People think strength is loud. It isn't. It's controlled, measured, intentional, walking away when necessary, standing firm when it matters, and knowing the difference. That's what this taught me. A new project came in, bigger, more complex. I accepted it without hesitation, not because I needed to prove anything, but because I was ready, fully. They destroyed my life in public, or at least, they tried to, but what they didn't understand was this. You can take credit. You can manipulate perception. You can control a moment, but you can't control the truth forever. And when it surfaces, it doesn't need noise. It doesn't need revenge. It just needs time. I didn't ruin him loudly. I didn't fight him publicly. I let the truth do what it always does. Unravel everything built on a lie. And in the end, I didn't just get my work back. I got something better. Clarity, control, and a life that no one else gets to rewrite.